Hello everyone, Tess Thomas here from Clay County Historical and Arts Council. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Go to Jail. Today we're with Dr. David Moore. David, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
I wonder if you just start us out with where you're born and raised.
Sure. I was born in Oakland, California. Both of my parents had graduated from the University of California at Berkeley. My mother was from California, but my father left the service after World War II there in San Francisco. He had been in the Navy, was discharged there, ended up going to University of California and meeting my mom there. So that's where I was born.
Wonderful. Tell us a little bit about your career. I've seen a little bit of your resume and it's quite impressive.
Well, I was lucky to end up in Chapel Hill because there was a very active archaeology program at the university there. I did not have a job after graduating myself, and I'd always been interested in archaeology. And I happened to on an exhibit about archaeology that had been produced by the state of North Carolina. And I believe it's from the History Museum. And I wrote to the person whose name was on the exhibit and said, how does one become an archaeologist?
Right.
And I got a really wonderful letter back suggesting that I contact Dr. Geoffrey Coe, who was the head of the archaeology program at Chapel Hill. So I did that, and he invited me to come talk with him. And long story short, about 5 months later, he called to offer me a job for the summer, which I was surprised to get the call. He said I had to make a decision within 3 days.
Oh, wow.
Because he was getting ready for the summer. And I looked at my financial situation. I had a decent job, and I wasn't going to earn much money doing this job. But I thought, this is a chance to find out, maybe this is a career. And I ended up on a site called the Hardaway site, which is a very famous, very early Native American site in North Carolina that dates back to over 12,000 years.
Oh my.
So it was a real great introduction to me to doing archaeology.
Whereabouts in North Carolina was that? What part of the state?
It's located in the central part of the state. It's north of Albemarle, North Carolina, on Baden. It's located on Baden Lake. This turned out to be a really great opportunity for me to learn the methods of doing field work, which I ended up loving, and decided that as a result, although I had not planned on going back to grad school, that I would apply to get a master's degree in anthropology, in the Department of Anthropology, focusing on archaeology at Chapel Hill.
And so then where did you go from there?
From there, I took a temporary job with the Office of State Archaeology for 1 year, and I worked in Raleigh. This was, I took a leave of absence from my graduate degree. I had finished my master's degree and was beginning work on my PhD, but I took 1 year off and was able to work in Western North Carolina at the Western office of the Office of State Archaeology.
Oh.
There in Asheville. And I thought I would be off for 1 year. It was 18 years before I took another break.
Oh my gosh.
So I had another wonderful opportunity working as a professional archaeologist in Asheville, covering basically the western third of the state.
That's amazing.
In 2000, I was hired by Warren Wilson College to teach and serve as a professor of anthropology there at the college. So that had always been a dream of mine, to be able to teach. I loved working for the State Archaeology Office, but being able to be a professor also enabled me to do more of my own research. So that was in 2000, and I worked there until I retired in 2022.
Somewhere along there, you had a call for help to help the Clay County Historical and Arts Council set up our Cherokee room here at the Old Jail Museum. Can you tell us a little bit about how that happened?
So it was a long time ago.
Yes.
And I was a much younger person. I was just the second year that I had been in my job in Asheville, and I'd been called to really to get involved with vandalism that was happening in Cherokee County and in Clay County on two really important archaeological sites. One being the Spike Bucktown site here in Hayesville, the other being the Peachtree site just outside of Murphy. And we'd been told that there were vandals who were digging up burials on these sites. And so I began working with local law enforcement, and that's how I met Rob Tiger down here, because he had been an archaeology student at Western Carolina University some years before, well, actually just a few years before at that time.
Right.
And Rob and I were the same age. We were both, we loved archaeology. And Rob became one of the people that I relied on here in the Western counties on helping me learn about this area, because I had never worked in this area. He was instrumental in sort of introducing me to the area, introducing me to people in the area. And over time, I worked closely with him and a lot of folks in Cherokee County, documenting the vandalism. Also, it became clear that one of the ways to fight against that kind of vandalism would be public education around the value of these archaeological sites and how important they were, not just to the Cherokee. Of course, they're essentially important to the Cherokee, but that this heritage, this Native American heritage, should be important to all of us.
Absolutely.
So I began doing a lot of public work in both these counties and in Swain County. And I really don't remember when I got the first call, but someone from the museum called me. It might have been Rob, but I have a feeling I think there was an executive director at the time, and said that they were interested in doing a Native American exhibit here.
And so how did you help with that?
So being with the State Archaeology Office, that gave me access to other state agencies, especially the museum planning group that had a Western office in Old Fort in McDowell County. And at that time, those folks were assisting local museums and other organizations all over Western North Carolina. They still exist today. Sadly, back in September, their entire building and setup was destroyed during Helene.
Oh, no.
Yep. And I don't know what the future of that. Old Fort took just a beating, and that their building was completely destroyed. It was set right next to the river. So we were lucky at that time to have their services. So I worked with museum people in my office in Asheville and the museum people there in Old Fort. And I also had a group of volunteers, just local volunteers from around Asheville who worked with me as well. So I got the technical help from the museum services, and then I had my volunteers who helped me sort of come together with what would be the best way to interpret, the Cherokee presence here at Spike Bucktown. So those were the forces that I was able to marshal to bring to bear on this.
Can you talk a little bit about Spike Bucktown?
Sure. This is one of the most intact Native American mounds in Western North Carolina.
Is it?
Absolutely. And there are more than a dozen that we can document, but this one is one of the most intact, along with places like Nanunyi in Cherokee, and Nikwasi in Franklin, Cowie Mound north of Franklin. There are mounds that are there on the landscape still, but many of them have been plowed away or plowed down. Some even, unfortunately, have been destroyed in western North Carolina through development and building. So it was important to me and our state archaeology office, as well as citizens here in Hayesville, to help protect the mound, and it had been subject to a lot of vandalism.
What were the vandals doing?
They're digging for Native American artifacts.
Just go in with shovels and start digging holes and looking for
Yes.
stuff and tearing things away?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's
One
heartbreaking.
of the most heartbreaking visits I made to the mound, and Rob was with me the first time, but I had to document a hole that was about right near the top of the mound, and it was about 5 feet across, and well, it was taller than I was.
A hole?
A hole.
Wow.
Hole
A
dug
hole, okay.
in the dirt, in the top of the mound, and about 6 feet deep.
And who knows what they got out of there?
Mounds are not full of artifacts. Mounds are structures, but sometimes individuals were buried into the mounds as well, so that there's no telling what came out. But unfortunately, the vandals targeted burials at Spikebucktown and at Peachtree because sometimes there would be artifacts buried with those individuals.
Oh.
And this was in the 70s and 80s, this was a scourge in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina. Luckily, the state laws enacted in Tennessee and North Carolina in the early 80s, we were really able to slow down that activity and pretty much stop it. It does still take place today, but I think we've done a good job, and we've had a lot of help from the Eastern Band at making sure that people understand how important and irreplaceable these resources are.
Right, absolutely. Wow. Okay, so let's go back to the Cherokee room. What all were you able to help them set up? I know that we've got some displays behind us. Can you tell us a little bit about how that got brought together?
Sure. With my volunteers, I worked out a plan of the different elements that I wanted to exhibit. So I wanted to interpret, give as much information as I could in a small space.
Yeah.
About the history of the site, what it really represented, what a mound represents, but also to contextualize the Cherokee people in the long, deep Native history in this area, and to talk about the technology, their life ways. And again, it's a very small exhibit, but I was really proud of what we were able to do, talking about the chronologies and life ways, the mound, and Rob Tiger was instrumental in helping bring artifacts from local collections. We've got a lot of really nice material here, also from some of the Western Carolina University excavations. And then we have a panel up there of the chronology with more artifacts. We have a model of the village back here, because that's something that people really don't have a sense at all of what these places looked like. And these were not villages of teepees. These were permanent, long-term towns that were on the landscape for generations sometimes. The Central Plains was an area where teepees. In fact, housing across North America was very different, depending on the environment that you lived in and the kind of society that was living there. When we established the room and the exhibit. We had a wonderful little opening and everything. And I can't remember exactly what else was here. It was a long time
It was a
ago,
long time ago.
but it was pretty empty. And since then, one of the really nice things is it's evolved. And so there are cases with other material that are really add depth and breadth to the exhibit. And of course, the most recent exhibit over here with the basket weaving is just extraordinary.
Yes.
And that's something that you just don't get to see. And to have that exhibit here is just wonderful.
Yeah, we enjoy a lot of the students that come through in the elementary and some middle schools classes that have come through and taken little tours of our museum, and this is their favorite room. Yeah. I know that we have added the pottery since you were here originally, and I believe the baskets.
Yep. And the Trail of Tears exhibit, which is really important. And
Yes.
Dr. Brett Riggs from Western Carolina University helped with that. And that's an essential part should be a part of any exhibit on Cherokees. Yes.
Yeah, when they did the removal.
Yep.
Heartbreaking. Well, if you wouldn't mind, let's switch cameras and we'll walk through the room a little
Sure.
bit. If you wouldn't mind, give us a little more detail on
Yep.
some of the things that you've
Sure.
contributed.
Yep.
You guys just stay tuned, okay?
Well, we'll start right here in this corner because this is the beginning of the story. We have one panel that says Spikebuck Town, the story of a Cherokee town. And it's just an introduction to the town, trying to sort of emphasize that this is a living place. It's a major center of Cherokee population. And over here we have a panel that talks about the mound itself and emphasizing the point that these are special places where the mounds were built, and this is a townhouse mound, meaning that there's a building on top of the mound. Down here, we have a model of what the Spikebuck town might have looked like, with the mound with a building on top and the family structures encircling it, probably a square ground in the middle, and a palisade that would have gone all the way around the town. And over here we have a panel about Cherokees and their environment. This is, the natural resources that are available to them to use and to work, to feed themselves, and also growing crops and such like that. And of course, here we have the basic chronology of Native Americans in Western North Carolina, from the earliest, what we call Paleo-Indians, to the historic period. And I think it's important, and I didn't really focus on this in this exhibit, but to recognize that, of course, the Cherokee themselves are still here today. So this encompasses the entire history. So this is a wonderful case. This was not a part of the original exhibit. It's a great addition because this includes replicas of classic traditional Cherokee pottery. And this is something that you can't see very many places. But certainly if you go to the Museum of the Cherokee People, you can see it there. And there are wonderful craftspeople, Cherokee craftspeople that are making this kind of pottery. But this is a great little example of it right here. This is another part of the exhibit that wasn't here originally, but it's a great addition. And it includes actual artifacts from the excavations and from collections from Spikebuck Mound and town site. And Rob Tiger was instrumental in helping put this together. Okey-doke.
I want to thank you so much, David. I appreciate you.
You're very welcome.
Well, we hope you have enjoyed this talk with Dr. David Moore. I want to remind you all that we are still in the middle of our photography contest. $100 cash prize for first place, $75 for second place, and $50 for third. So please, I hope you're snapping your pictures. Just remember, just take your photo to Prince Plus on Highway 69, and they will matte and frame it for you for a little under $15, and we don't charge an entry fee in lieu of that processing fee to Prince Plus. The last day you can turn your photos in is 4 p.m. on Monday, April 21st, and the winners will be announced and the prizes awarded at our 50th birthday party, May 31st, right here at the Old Jail Museum, just off the square of Hayesville. Also, please check out our website at clayhistoryartsnc.org, and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. So I thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you at the next one.